Hi, this is Randy Kirk. We have to dispense with the gloom and the doom. So many people on Twitter right now, so many people on YouTube channels right now are talking about Tesla as somehow being on the verge of who knows what kind of calamity or crisis. That is just nonsense. And I'm going to prove it to you today. Listen, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, I highly recommend you do it. I would appreciate all the likes you can possibly send me. And what I love is all the comments. You guys are doing great on the comments. I'm expecting tons of comments on today's commentary because this is, I have to put an end to it. I don't know if this will do it, but I'm going to push this YouTube, this particular version, this particular episode. I'm going to push it out there. I'm going to do all that I can to get this to be heard because it's just crazy. And the stock is nonsense. And anyway, maybe you'll understand what I'm trying to say better if I just say it. So let me get into it. Number one, Tesla grew sales and probably volume, dollar volume, at least 40% year over year in a rough, horrible year. A year when China, the largest car market in the world, was having tremendous difficulties with COVID, with their economy and everything else. A year in which everybody was complaining about the economy worldwide, and Europe going into all kinds of problems with energy. In a very tough year, Tesla grew another 40% or more in total unit sales, and also at least 40%, probably more, in volume. Is this a crisis? If that's a crisis, I want to go to work for a company that's really doing well. No large cap company, no company doing this kind of volume has ever grown at the rate that Tesla is year after year after year. Okay, now let's just for fun, let's say that the gloom and doomers who are estimating that Tesla will only grow from 1.4 million cars to 1.9 million cars next year. Let's assume they're right. Does that sound like doom and gloom? We're talking about people that are estimating a significant 35–40% increase in total dollar sales volume and unit sales volume going into next year in what everybody assumes will be a worldwide recession where the Fed has raised interest rates by 4 or 5%. The absolute base case, the people that are the most concerned and worried, think that Tesla will still ship 1.9 million cars next year. I'm confused. Where is the doom and gloom? Why are we so anxious about growing from 1.4 to 1.9 million units? I personally believe it's going to be a whole lot more than 1.9 million units. The capacity is clearly going to be somewhere around 2.5 million units. And Elon says he's going to sell out the capacity even if he has to cut prices. So will that mean that we might have a temporary 1-year reduction in margins? If you've been watching my videos, you know I don't think we'll have any reduction in margins because I think we have so many marketing levers that we can pull. And I'll talk about that in a second. So we're going to sell between 1.9 and 2.5. 2.65 is my number. It's a very, very max. That's if everything goes well. Vehicles next year. And by the way, when you're counting trucks, every single semi-truck is the equivalent of at least 6 or 7 Model 3s in terms of dollar volume and profit. So you got to use a multiplier there. So if they do 10,000 next year, you're really looking at like 60,000 car equivalent. Keep that in mind when you're doing your estimates. Okay, so let's just say for fun that they only do 1.9 million. That's a crazy number. Do you think there'll be any other sales next year? Do you think that they'll just stop selling energy at the local station, gas station, the energy stations rather, the supercharger stations? You think that's just going to stop? They're not going to do that anymore? Oh no, they'll just continue to increase that and increase that. And in fact, now they're going to invite other people in to buy energy at those stations as well that are not driving Teslas. So those volumes will go up per station as all this takes place. Plus there's more cars on the road. So that means there'll be more energy purchases next year from the stations. Do you think that the energy storage business is going to shrink next year? Well, you know, there's Lathrop, and we've spent hours talking about Lathrop on other videos. that I've done recently, as well as there's so much Twitter activity with regard to Lathrop. Even Gary Black now agrees that we'll do at least $10 billion next year out of Lathrop. He thinks it's only at 20% margins. Others say 50, 60% margins. If we take his 20% margins, that's still $2 billion in profit from the Lathrop facility next year. I think that's crazy. I think it's going to be $10 billion from Lathrop, and that's assuming they only do ship, in fact, 10,000 containers at $2.2 million average each. So let's see, that's going to add to the numbers that everybody has, because nobody on the street, nobody that's doing modeling is counting Lathrop for anything next year, or any significant amounts next year. So that's just a little additional thing to go into the pile. Now then we have the semi-truck. Some people think that we'll ship 5,000 semi-trucks next year. Some people think 10. I think 25,000. If Elon says that he thinks he can ship 50,000 semi-trucks in 2024, which, by the way, that's the equivalent of at least 250,000 Model 3s. 50,000 times 6 would be 30,000. Let's call it 300,000 Model 3s. So it's almost the equivalent of the first phase of Berlin, or the amount of Model Ys will sell this year out of Berlin or out of the first phase of Austin. So just in semi-trucks in 2024, a year from now, just in 2024, we will sell enough semi-trucks to be the equivalent of a Berlin or an Austin first phase. That's assuming 50,000. That's what Elon says he's going to do. Well, if you're going to get to 50,000 in 2024, then you're going to need to get, I think, to 25,000 in 2023, which means that you're going to get the equivalent of 25,000 times 6 would be 150,000 Model 3s in semi-trucks, and nobody is modeling that in. And are you sad yet? Are you pessimistic and unhappy about the future of Tesla yet? That's just the three things that they do, which the most of right now, which is the cars, the semi-trucks, and the Lathrop Energy Megapacks. Well, then there's something new coming out. There's a new product coming out this year. You might have heard about it. It's called the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck's coming out this year, and sometime in close to the end of the second quarter, maybe the beginning of the third quarter, and maybe it'll take longer than we ever expect, and maybe it won't happen until the fourth quarter. Oh, well, but the Cybertruck is coming out this year. There is somewhere around 1,500,000 reservations for the Cybertruck. The first Cybertrucks that go out the door, it's obvious are going to be $100,000 a piece. How many will we ship this year? I'm estimating 25,000. I pulled that number right out of the air. I mean, I just figure, looking at the other ramps and looking at the ease of making this particular product, because it has an exoskeleton, it doesn't do paint. I mean, there's so many things that make this easier to build. Obviously, there's new things that they're doing that they've never done before, so that can make it harder to do the initial ramp. But one way or the other, there's going to build a lot of Cybertrucks this year, and they're going to be $100,000 a piece, probably all of this year. Is that something to be discouraged about? Is that something to be unhappy about? I think that's something to add on to all of the numbers that are out there in terms of what's going to happen this year. And then the multiplier effect in 2024 is even greater, because now we're talking probably 100,000, maybe 200,000, 300,000 Cybertrucks in 2024. But sadly, Elon made such a huge mistake by not making little tiny cars sooner. He made such a terrible mistake by not getting the robotaxis done sooner. He has lost his mind. He's an idiot. He's a fool. He's the worst CEO in history. What do you mean, techno king? He's doing such a terrible job. I'm sorry, folks. There's a limited number of batteries. There's a limited amount of brain power. There's a limited amount of capacity in terms of the overall brain power of the organization. And yet, we're going to grow from last year to this year at least 35%, according to the doomsayers. We're going to grow at least 35% in cars. We're going to add a layer on top of that of semi-trucks. We're going to add a layer on top of that of Cybertrucks, and we're going to layer on all of these energy storage units out of Lathrop. Oh, that's all we're going to do in 2023. And the stock's at 120. I'm so confused. I'm going to end this particular episode just with a quick thought with regard to the difference between 1.9 million and 2.5 million cars next year by just starting to list a few of the ways that Elon, okay, let me put it this way. Up until now, all the cars that have been sold, every single car that's been sold all over the world has been done basically by word of mouth and by Elon being active on Twitter. That's how the cars are getting sold. I tell my friend, you tell your friend, that friend buys a car, they tell their friend. That's how the cars have been sold. Oh, a little incentive here, a little drop in price there. Somebody, you get 1,000 supercharger miles because you told your friend. There's a little tiny bit of marketing and advertising maybe going on in China, but overall, there's been no advertising. There's been no marketing. There's been nothing taking place. There's probably not even a marketing department. There's no sales energy out there that's causing people to go out and buy. They've done it all through word of mouth and Twitter. Okay. When I start a manufacturing company tomorrow, when I did 40 years ago, whatever it was, 1981. Yeah, so that's 40 years ago. When I started my manufacturing company, I didn't count on word of mouth. I had to go out, I had to advertise. I put a sales force together. The sales force went out and started calling on potential customers. I started public relations in the trade publications, et cetera, et cetera. I started doing all these marketing things. I started figuring out what the pricing had to be in order to beat the competition because there was tons of competition out there doing what I did. I tried to make mine better. I tried to make mine more unique. I tried to add on, but then if I did all those things, I had to tell somebody. So I had to have a sales organization going out and telling the story. And I had to use advertising and promotion and writing articles in trade journals and whatnot in order to get, and going to trade shows in order to get that done. Okay, well, Elon hasn't used any of that yet. Tesla hasn't used any of that yet. None of it. So do you think that in a year when there's a potential slowdown, and we don't know that there's going to be any slowdown, do we? We actually don't know. We won't know until the end of January whether there's really any slowdown in orders. We won't know whether we're able to sell every single car that they make in these new facilities in addition to the cars that they're already making. We won't really know that because the order books haven't started filling up yet. The Inflation Reduction Act effects aren't even known yet because people are still confused about how to even apply it. So we really don't know what's going to happen. But if there is a slowdown in demand such that Elon Musk believes that he cannot sell every car that he makes, I don't think he's just going to lower prices. I think he's going to do things like advertise, hire a sales organization for fleet sales. I think he's going to come up with some kind of a better incentive than 1,000 free miles. Like I'm suggesting $1,000. I think he's going to use influencers. I think he's going to set up demos across the country where people can go out and ride drive a plaid for, a mile or whatever it is and go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. I think that there's going to be so many lists of things that Elon Musk is going to do if necessary in order to sell the 2.5 million cars that he is going to produce next year, that it'll make your head spin. And a lot of it will also be just continuing to do what he does on Twitter, continuing to do what he does in terms of going out and doing talks and getting on channels. I hope he comes on mine someday. I'd love to talk to him about marketing. You've watched him on all these different shows. Does anybody ever ask him about marketing? I was a manufacturer. I've sold on 4 continents. I am a marketer. That's what I've done my entire career. I'd like to talk to you, Elon. Come on my channel. Let's talk about your plans in terms of marketing and in terms of making sure that every car gets sold. It's been great talking to you. Would you please like the channel? Would you please subscribe? Would you please comment? I want to hear your comments. Don't be sad. This is going to be a banner year and the stock is going to the moon. This has been Randy Kirk. Enjoyed talking to you.